What's poppin', everybody? Hello and welcome to Popcorn Culture. My name is Ben Carlin and I am your host. Here with me today is my brother Jay, who will be in every episode.
And who I have to say, Ben, is still totally crushing just the fashion trends set by you on this show.
You would say, wait, you, my special guest, is crushing the fashion trend?
Me, co-host of this show, crushing the fashion trends.
You're in full-blown Mickey garb.
I don't want to
today.
say that you've been outmoused again, but I mean, look, it speaks for itself.
I love that my goal and objective of it was to stretch my fashion muscles, and somehow that has turned into who can out Mickey off the other person.
That's exactly the way I've interpreted it thus far, and so far I think I am winning.
I will grant you that. You are in fact winning.
Yeah.
You are in fact winning.
For those of you who are only but listening, who are the true elite podcaster audience, I guess. What's the word I'm looking for?
The theater. Theater of colonels out there.
Let me describe my wares to you. I have on blue jeans, but then I have on what Ben likes to call organized scatter.
Organized scatter is the name of that I personally came up with for t-shirt designs, where it's sort of like it like you have little images covering the entire shirt, but they're sort of spaced evenly from one another. Yeah, but they, like, all of your Mickeys have different like little gestures and expressions that they're wearing.
Do you know what this shirt reminds me of?
What is that?
Okay, so when we were kids, we had a very, very like basic computer, like 1992 level computer.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
And you had if you were going to play a game on it, you had to put in some old floppy disks, as it were. Right. And okay, so
we are that old.
We are that old. And available to us on that particular computer were 2 Mickey Mouse themed games, one of which I think was like letters and one of which I think was numbers.
Okay. And
in order to load up the game, you had to like there was a screen and there was this, like, you had to put in a code, and that code was associated with a sheet of paper that came with the game, and it was this red sheet of paper that had like 50 different Mickey Mouse expressions or something. And on the screen would be like one of the expressions, and you'd have to type in the number associated with that expression.
Whoa!
I have no idea why this was like part of why it was so complicated and why they needed so many different options, but Mom would always have to come in and be like, okay, hold on, let me find what face is he making, and look at this like way too big sheet of Mickey mice.
Yeah.
Is this blasting a memory?
It is in so incredibly vaguely. Like we're talking like the age of my life when I was 3 to 4 years old at best. So it is very early on in my life. I do remember this particular sheet of paper, and I'm sort of mind blown that this was like a measure that was being taken at that time. Like, it almost reminds me of the like confirming I'm not a robot type of, security clearances that you have on like present day things.
I've seen so many memes about that exact question lately, like especially with WandaVision, like if Vision was presented with that box, like prove I'm not a robot, and he's like, oh, what? I am a robot.
This is a real dilemma for me because I don't know how. Yeah, that's a good point.
Or people being like, prove I'm not a robot. You're a robot.
Exactly.
Anyway,
here's the thing about those though, is that frequently it'll say something like, choose every picture that has like a street in it or something. I overthink these things so aggressively. Mm-hmm. Like I will be sitting there trying to I'm like, ooh, but could that be interpreted as a street because sidewalks are like streets?
It feels like what they're trying to present you with is, here's a super easy thing to do if you're human, but what would be very difficult if you were not human. And so suddenly you're like in a like I'm with stupid kind of situation.
Yes, yeah. That's exactly how it feels. Like I always feel, because the other one too, it would be like a picture of like the interstate, with cars kind of like coming at you, like a traffic cam or something like that, and it'll say like choose every picture that has a car in it, but like it's all like or sometimes it is like one continuous picture, and you're almost like, but I bet the bumper is barely sticking out in this other frame because like it's not all, like it's a little cut off by the grid, and like does that mean it's technically in that like middle left cube? And I don't know. I get like, it actually gives me like mild anxiety.
Oh, me too. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Really don't mess up. Really don't. Like, I check the boxes, then I go like, wait a minute. Okay. Good. Oh, I failed.
Sometimes I think that it's almost like the computer's like, he was close enough. I can tell he was in the ballpark.
I often sometimes think that too, because sometimes I'm like, I'm pretty sure I misclicked one of those and it let me through.
Right. How does this work? Speaking of that, this is actually something that when I was a kid for the longest period of time, I thought when you played the computer in like a video game, that there was actually someone somewhere who was so gifted at like playing at this specific skill level that you just selected as to play against you. Like it was so baffling to me to think that the way that the programming could work is that like there was this ability to fluctuate. Like I didn't have enough trust in what could be programmed into a game.
Right.
So my belief was that there were people all over the world who were constantly on standby and constantly ready to play as like whatever difficulty you chose for the computer to be.
Right.
And they were always scaling their efforts perfectly, which what is ironic about this is that the technology that would be involved in order to be playing effectively on the internet with people, in 1995 would have been much more advanced than what was actually happening.
Right.
But in my mind, that was the more logical explanation.
Right. That like you chose level 10 difficulty. Like, okay, this person's got to be on their game and they're just sitting in the chair and they're like down to 1. I'm going to troll this kid. He thinks this is easy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And the other thing too was that we had our grocery store that we have here in like this part of the world is called Kroger's or Kroger.
K. Rogers. Yeah.
K. Rogers.
Yeah, Kroger's.
And, there was like this space sort of like behind the checkout counter that I think was like the offices for like the administrative staff that like ran the grocery store.
Yeah.
And there was sort of like a little bit of like a two-way glass type of thing going on, but you could still see through it at our childhood grocery store. And I remember thinking that is where the people I was playing on the computer game against, I thought that's where they were.
Right. It's like Sega is positioning people in grocery stores across the country to play literally any game any kid is playing at any difficulty at any time.
Right.
At random.
Why do you think there are loading screens? It was clearly them having to like prepare themselves to play
exactly
the like a level 8 Black Ranger.
Yeah.
We had the Power Rangers fighting game.
We did have the Power Rangers fighting game, and I think it's the best I've ever been in a fighting game in my life.
Wow.
I think if we found a way to hook up a Sega Genesis and play that game, I would still be good at it.
Wow.
I remember the controls.
Of course you do, because that is how your brain works.
It is a weird thing. Sometimes I'm like, I've just got a lot of useless information in this brain, but other times those things will come into play, and then it's like, game on.
Game on. Quite literally in this case.
You think you can beat me in the Black Ranger? I don't think so.
And you know how to do the whirlwind attack.
Yeah, it's just beep, 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 just over and over and over.
That's all it was?
Yeah.
What?
That's whirlwind. If you did A, it was slow. If you did B, it was fast. I don't know why you would ever go slow.
As a kid, was it ever a consideration to you to explain these things to me, or was it like, I can keep beating him if he doesn't know?
Oh, that's absolutely, yeah. There was little motivation for me to teach other people how to play games well.
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
Then they might be as good as me. I don't. This is like my secret advantage.
Exactly. Like I took the time to learn, and therefore this is mine, and I will not share.
I mean, you had access to the instruction booklet.
Yeah, I just didn't care as much. That's what it came down to.
Right, I guess so.
Yeah. That's actually, it's sort of like an interesting possible segue into one of our potential topics for today. I might be reaching on how much of a segue this is. Segue. Okay. So you had written in our show notes today, and it actually got me very excited because I was like, I want to explore this topic in a bunch of different ways.
Oh, okay.
But you wrote down, is it arrogant to care about legacy?
Okay. Yes, I did write this down. Well, because last week you were talking about like what movie or piece of media from today will end up having like the greatest legacy.
Yes.
And I feel bad. I don't think we actually ended up exploring what it would be.
Like you didn't give me an answer.
I didn't give you an answer.
That's okay.
Yeah, we just more talked about what you were meaning. So anyway, I don't know. Did you have a suggestion for what piece of media might have the greatest legacy?
Gosh,
now?
That's the thing. So when I originally came up with this thought, it was a year one video topic for SuperCarlinBrothers, and my answer to the question at the time was in fact Game of Thrones, and I was like, it's going to be this masterfully executed,
it could have been
perfect story that like that was it was a really good example of taking something and like maybe where before it would have existed for like a niche audience of people who were really into like the fantasy genre and that type of thing, and like made it so mainstream and like was also tackling like modern day themes and ideas. You know, it was doing so many things at once.
Yeah.
And it was so well, and so many people were leaned in, and it was like WandaVision, where like I wasn't going into any conversational circle and somebody was like, I'm not that really into it. It's like everybody I knew was into it.
Right.
It was
Everyone's
like,
into Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Of course everyone's watching.
And so it could have just been my echo chamber. Like it could have been the case that like this particular show to me had this like total, like it was just perfect in so many different ways.
Oh, this will be interesting. Let me ask the theater of colonels listening right now. Is anyone unaware of what Ben is talking about already? Like, are you just like completely like game of what? Like,
there's no way.
It seems impossible.
It felt so ubiquitous. But maybe it's not
ubiquitous.
And so that's the thing too. And this is probably like why I have probably more like unresolved anger inside of me about the ending of Game of Thrones than possibly like any other single piece of media. And I think it's because I felt this way about it. Like I felt like I was watching history happen. Like I was watching. People have pointed out to me that like if you go back to the earlier seasons, like not all the CGI is really all that perfect, and some of the acting here and there is not like as good as I interpreted it when I first saw it.
Well, the thing is, I that's probably true,
right.
But I would argue that doesn't matter, because what really matters was like the cultural impact it was having. You know, like just because something is done, this is the weird thing about like what piece of media might have the greatest legacy is that it's unlikely to be the best thing. I would think it's going to be the thing. It's the best thing that had the widest reach. So like you have this giant pool of things, and something is like the top tier best thing that's actually ever been made, but it won't have the reach. It's like when a movie at the Academy Award wins and you're like, I've never even heard of it.
Right. Yeah.
That's not going to have good legacy. It will probably be better than the thing that has great legacy.
Right.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, so my immediate knee-jerk reaction as you sort of like describe it in that manner, and especially when I originally posed this question kind of comparing a modern day piece of media to like a potential Mona Lisa level of like fame is, and again, I'm not like, an art expert, but like the Mona Lisa at this point is almost in some way, shape or form, like famous for its fame.
Right.
Like, it like became a very famous painting. And like at some point in time, I think it stopped being about the painting itself. And it was just like, it is now famous because it is so well known.
Right. It's famous for having its own legacy, but it's like, and like, I'm not enough of an art major or anything to know, but I don't know if the Mona Lisa is considered a good painting, if there's like exceptional brush strokes, or like if there's like deep things. I know there's lots of layers to it and lots of people have dissected it a ton because it's famous.
Yes.
But
yes.
Is it the best example of whatever it was trying to accomplish? I don't know. Is it just the piece of like Renaissance art that just stood out the most? Maybe. I can't answer it, but I would bet there are more difficult to craft things that you don't know about that exist.
Yes, exactly. And so like moving on from that idea, like there's a part of me that like almost wants to reach like for Star Wars.
Ooh, you think Star Wars?
Because Star Wars is another really good example of like, it's got pretty bad acting. It's like not the most airtight story ever, but like it would be really interesting to me if like fast forward again, we're talking like 500 years in the future, like quite a long time. It would almost even be interesting to me if Star Wars, the original movie, what we call episode 4,
right? Because
when that movie came out, it wasn't intended to be a series. It was just intended, it wasn't even called episode 4. It was just called Star Wars. And it would be really interesting to me if the history books were like, it was so popular, they made a bunch of subsequent stories. And that is the way that history would ultimately remember Star Wars, because we think of it as this like gigantic expanded universe of
right.
And to call it an expanded universe would probably even be for most people, they would think like, oh, like the comics, the novels, the video games, like all that type of stuff. I would be referring to the expanded universe as any other main episode hard stop. Like Star Wars, the movie, what we call episode 4, what we call A New Hope, is like what they would refer to as this piece of media. And everything
like it would
else
get so big that they would have to just like in order to describe it, they would have to scale it all the way back to the beginning.
They would have to scale it all the way back to the beginning, and then really all the history books would talk about the other episodes was this piece of media was so popular in its time when it came out in 1977 that they actually made like a variety of spin-off movies, like almost as if like that is how all of the rest of the Star Wars universe would be seen through the lens of historians from 500 years from now.
Like that's the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy entry about Star Wars. Like so popular, it spanned spin-offs.
Yes, exactly. Right. Yes.
Like you're like, maybe we need a little more.
Right.
Like I think that's the joke in Hitchhikers is that Ford Prefect, the alien who writes for the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, comes to Earth to write an entry about Earth. And after living there for a decade, he expands the entry from just being the word harmless to mostly harmless. He's like, I doubled the entry. It's like, Arthur's like, that's all you have to say about Earth?
Right. Like like you think that we're accomplishing all of these really, really, really significant things, but everything comes down to scope.
Right.
It's like if you're coming from like a wildly more diverse, technologically advanced,
Earth just feels very basic.
Right. If you're aware of the fact that there's tens of thousands of different, life form occupied planets out there, and you reach this one, it would be like, yeah, I've been here for a little while. It's fine. Like, it's not dangerous.
I wouldn't go back.
Nah.
Yeah.
There are better places.
Can you imagine if you were like meeting people from other planets on the regular, like, oh yeah, I've been to Tatooine, or like, oh yeah, like Tatooine's a bad example because it'd be like there's like it seems like there's 3 cities on the whole planet.
Sure.
But like if you're like, oh yeah, I've been to Coruscant, it'd be like, yeah, what part? It'd be like, you couldn't even answer that. It's not like you could, the idea that you'd have a shared experience from having been to the same planet is ridiculous.
Sure.
Which is like, it's like when you talk about college, it's like, oh, you went to Virginia Tech. Do you know this person? It's like, there's like 29,000 people there.
Right.
No,
yes.
I don't.
Right. And it's the same way with Canada.
Right. Very small place.
Right. Very. Yeah. It's like,
you live in Canada?
You must know my friend.
You must know my friend. And then they do.
And then they do because it's Canada. They're all so friendly.
Every Canadian just like hit pause. You're like, new podcast. Just kidding, eh?
That was good. That was really good. Okay, so like touching on that a little bit, because I actually think again I'm able to segue it back to the same question. So when you asked about legacy originally, I think that my knee-jerk reaction to it was sort of like, what would one person mean by the question of like legacy? Like, what is that you asking like how much can I value? How important is my own personal legacy? Like, and with that question, it's almost like, how much of the objectives of your life are for the enjoyment of your life while you are living versus how much of the objective of your life is supposed to be how ultimately your existence impacts the future after you're gone.
Right.
And I feel like that, especially like if you talk about legacy, it would very much feel like that's a huge piece of the puzzle. Like when I'm gone, this is what I will have left behind. And even that question is like widely interpreted as like, are you talking about like initiatives, programs, businesses, or things like children, family?
Right. It can go in a lot of different directions. I suppose what I am talking about when I wrote this note was like, is it like how will people remember you? How will people talk about you?
Sure.
And is that something worth caring about? Like, if you're caring about that, like, is it, when I say, is it arrogant to care about legacy? Is it like, does that mean you feel so self-important that people are definitely going to talk about you? Or is like your goal is to become so important that people will talk about you? Like, I'm living a life in such a way that I am trying to guarantee that I will be talked about afterwards.
So, and here's a question too on that note is, have you ever, and this is going to sound very, very self-centered, but like, have you ever wondered what somebody might say about you like during your eulogy, like sort of like if you're at that moment, like if you could be an attendee of your like funeral, whatever the case may be, and you got to like hear how your like what you left on the people around you and like the manner in which they would celebrate you, like is it the type of thing like where you could imagine like I left a positive impact on these people, or is it the type of thing where like would there be like niceties attached to the idea of not speaking ill of people who are gone,
right?
Like
yeah,
that type of thing,
right. Like there's like an asterisk at your funeral where people probably aren't saying mean things about you.
Yes, yeah. Right. As a general rule,
I less think about like what people would say at my funeral and more like what people just what history in general would say about me. Like, will people I never met know my name and talk about me or something like that? That's like the question. Or something like that. That's sort of what I mean by legacy.
Right. And I mean, and that's interesting too, because like very frequently, being like the president of the United States, for example, is not a job that I think like many people really want. It's a very hard job. It basically ensures 50% of the population do not like you.
Right.
But it is probably one of the most surefire ways to ensure legacy.
Like people will remember you, probably.
You will be remembered. Right.
And, like you're not going to be totally forgotten to history, even if you're not a very memorable president, because I certainly couldn't name them all.
No, me either. But it's like, I would almost
wonder. There is record of them.
There is record of them. Is that part of the appeal to the people who do seek out that kind of like position in society?
I think it almost has to be.
Right.
But and I think part of what I've been part of why this has been a question on my mind recently is because I think at some point when I was just like a little kid, like it was presented to me as like, no, it like the answer to that question would be yes, it's very arrogant to care about that. Like you shouldn't care about that. Like that is like that leads to trouble, that leads to pride, that leads to like don't worry. Like, and I was just like, it was one of those like, oh, I absorbed that, I took it as fact, and I went forward in the world. And like, then like I'm more growing up, and I'm like, or even in the past month or so, I'm like, is that what that is, caring about that, what that means, or is that some person I don't remember's opinion? Obviously, they don't have a good legacy. But, or it's like, what have I been operating under this assumption? Do other people care about this, like actively and openly and without like scorn? Like I don't know. But then like so for example, I listen to a lot of like whenever I finish a book, I find I resort back to listening to the Hamilton soundtrack a lot.
Oh, sure.
So much of that, like every character in that play is concerned with legacy.
Yes.
But at the same part, like when I first watched it, I'm like, well, yeah, but this is exactly like, that's part of the commentary is that like, look what all the trouble, like they're all so concerned about it and then all leads everyone to trouble.
Right.
Or is that the commentary they're making at all, or am I just projecting that on there?
Well, and I don't know. I mean, this is what is it's so odd about it is that like very frequently in the stories that we like watch and observe, I mean, going back to Star Wars, for example, or Game of Thrones for that matter, both of these stories are narratives about people who like wanted to seize power. Like you're almost looking at it through the lens of like, of course, like this is the thing all people aspire to have is like to be the leader of the big thing, like, I mean, that's the Emperor, that's every single character with the exception of Jon Snow in Game of Thrones. Like everybody wants to be on the throne, but then like even to make it extremely topical, I mean, there's a huge conversation going on about like Meghan Markle and Prince Harry and sort of like the impact of being a member of like the royal family. There's this perception that it's like this extraordinarily like desirable place to be. And I feel like if history tells us anything, if even like going to elections tells us anything, like it doesn't seem like that many people really are seeking this out. Like I've always thought it would be so curious to see like what it would be like if it was an election year and instead of it being like a wildly divisive thing, the real issue was almost like, man, I love both of these people. I don't know which one to choose.
Right.
Like
right.
What if that
like, never happens, right?
Right. Yeah. But like, what if it got to the point where it was like, it was, and I don't even know how that could ever happen.
That is a very interesting. That's it. Boy, I would love that scenario where it's like I'm having trouble choosing because I want to vote for both of them.
Right. It's like I see the advantages of both of these.
Yeah,
people.
but even if you were voting like in the primaries, it's like people get very divisive about like which version of the things they already like they want.
Oh yeah,
you know?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, this is a show where we talk about having strong opinions about weak things, so we split hairs on extremely minute things. But
sure, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, so I mean, there's a lot to be said with it. There's like in terms of how all of these, I don't know, these pieces sort of like form together and like what it really means to you to like have a legacy, I guess. Like one of the things that came to mind very quickly to me was like was children. Like I said, one of them would have been like your last name. Like I know that a lot of people get like very extremely like sentimentally attached to your own last name.
Right.
And it kind of becomes this big thing where it's like, maybe you want, let's go back to cinema instead of applying it to like real life. But the idea of like having a son to carry on the name or whatever is like very frequently like a really big priority for specifically and frequently like monarch type characters, especially where that's a big deal. So like how big of a priority is that to you and why, or taking it one step further, having like a junior, you know, like having like a child who bears your same name, which is like not something I've personally encountered yet. I very interestingly, you are named Jonathan. Our dad's name is John.
Correct.
Our grandfather is named John, but goes by Jack. But our dad is not a junior to him, and you are not. Like Jonathan is different from John, and you guys have different middle names. But then you have one of the twins' names is Nathan John, which very interestingly, I think this is the cleverest thing in the world. Is your name is basically John Nathan.
Right.
Jonathan, John Nathan.
Yeah.
And so
Joe Nathan.
Yeah.
Nathan John. So his name reversed is Jonathan.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I find that to be a lot cooler than having like pulled the junior card. Like I think it's just really that was like
it worked out magnificently well because Beth and I had a very difficult time landing on boy names. We really wanted, like, once we found out we were having twins, we were thinking of names, and we like it's so weird because there were like so many girl names we liked that we had to like whittle it down, and so few boy names we liked that we kept canceling everything out.
Right.
Until we were finally left with Nick and Nate, and then we were trying to determine what would middle names be, and that worked out really well because like Beth, because then like if you wanted to name your kids after, you know, your parents or something like that, so there was something going on there, it would have maybe felt like, okay, well, we chose your side of the family, so that left the other side out, but we were having twins, so we could use both our dad's names, which was really good. And then I was like, who gets which name? And we realized that, you know, if you put John after Nathan, then you can flip it around and it's Jonathan. That's really fun too. So.
It's super cool.
Yeah.
I think it's immensely clever. Yeah, it's really awesome.
I'm pretty happy with that.
And so I love that because there is like a morsel of legacy attached to that. You know, like it sort of is your name in a manner of speaking that like is being passed on to one of your children, which is really cool.
Yeah, Nate, be careful with that name.
You got a lot to protect there.
You got a lot to protect, son. I will say this. I wouldn't have thought having a son mattered to me in the way of like preserving the family name or something. But when we found out that, you know, Luke was going to be a boy, like when we found out the gender, like there was this weird sigh of relief in the back of my brain that I was like very surprised to feel. That was like, well, there you go, name. Like the name lives on.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, that is such a weird, like I didn't think I cared about it, but like I remember feeling that, and I was like, that was interesting.
Like it mattered to you in a way that it's interesting to me that it mattered to you and you were surprised that it mattered to you.
Yes. Yeah. It was like, it's like, it doesn't matter to me, but now but also you don't have to worry about it now.
Sure.
Like, at least which is such a weird, even the idea of like like male children carrying on the family name feels like that's becoming like a very outdated sort of
completely
idea, because so many people that just don't even take last names when they get married.
Yes,
at this point.
And this was kind of like when Alice and I got married. That was a really like it like was so fascinating to me how little of a thing it was that we were discussing. Like, it wasn't really something that was super like prominent in terms of how were we going to handle this, and like, are you planning to, and like,
right,
because it was kind of one of those things where it was really like ball in her court, where I was really fine with it either which way. And ultimately what she did was she had her middle name was Catherine, and it wasn't like specifically like sentimentally attached. It was just a name that like her mom liked when she was born. And so she basically is now like her old last name is her middle name, and her last name is Carlin. So it's like Alice Haynes Carlin.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of people do that. They like swap their middle name for their maiden name.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, that was, it really was completely like a her decision kind of thing. But I remember thinking that, like, where it is this extremely common practice that you see happen, but also that like it was not necessarily a priority to me that it happened for me.
Right.
So that, I don't know. I guess that was sort of interesting. Yeah, that idea of the last name and how important is it, and because the other thing too, at the end of the day, is like your children are your children regardless of whether or not they share your last name.
I know it like whether you share the last name, obviously your descendants are your descendants regardless of the name. But there is something like a little like sad about your name dying out.
I understand that too. Yeah, like there is this thought of like, like my parents were this name, my grandparents were this name, their parents were this name. Like, it's been around for such a huge amount of history that maybe that's where that like sense of responsibility comes from.
Maybe it's like, man, I don't know, like this name is, what if I'm the reason the name dies? That could be like, well, that doesn't feel like, that would feel like I've let my entire ancestry down or something.
But you wouldn't have.
But you wouldn't have. Exactly. Of course you wouldn't have. But I can easily understand why people would feel that way.
Yes. So that actually brings me, because I think the movie Coco tackles sort of the same kind of concept of legacy, I think, from two different angles that I really, really like. And I think it's sort of like interesting for a discussion, because one of the things about I guess like the portion of Mexican culture, and I don't know if it applies to all of Mexico, but specifically where Miguel is from, they have sort of this like multi-generational family that like all lives together. So like the Rivera like compound, if you will, is like a space where like Miguel lives with like his siblings and his parents and his aunts and uncles, his grandmother and his great grandmother. And this is sort of like an idea that like here in America, we don't really follow this tradition anymore. Like there are three, like you and I, that we have a younger brother, Tyler, and all three of us like have our own houses, and like our parents live in the same town as us and they have their own house. So like, out of the 5 family members, we literally own 4 houses.
Right. There's no Carlin compound. It's not everyone in one spot.
Right. But
castle, that's a way better word. Carlin Castle.
Carlin Castle.
Maybe if there was a castle, maybe we would. I don't know.
Maybe we would. I mean, the day could come.
You know how I like castles.
Who doesn't like castles?
Right.
But so the idea here that I think is really interesting, because we were just talking about like the want to become like a civic leader, a president, a governor, a senator, congressperson, a mayor, whatever the case may be. I don't know that it's like the most sought after profession. Like I don't know anybody I went to high school with. Now there's one exception to that, but I don't know many people I went to high school with that like wanted to be one of those people.
I can tell you, I certainly do not.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Right. Like it's not something I really aspire for. But if you live in this multi-generational household, then I do think, and as we sort of saw in Coco, there is like a little bit of a very internalized hierarchy that I think happens because everybody is contributing to, I keep using the word compound, which doesn't feel like the right word, but like the general familial household. And it's the type of thing where there's a very senior based role that eventually you could and would take over. So like it's Miguel's grandmother, even though the great grandmother, Mama Coco, is technically like in,
still alive.
She's still alive, but maybe has like aged past holding this title in the family. But then you can see like the grandmother like wears it like with an enormous amount of pride. Like she takes a huge amount of pride in sort of being like the head of house for all of the Rivera family. And I could see that being like a really fulfilling thing in life if you basically, you are sort of like almost like waiting your turn. Like you are not like a huge member of society necessarily, like in a like elected leadership type of position, but eventually you are the leader of your people, like the immediate family around you.
Sure.
And then as such, like all of the respective careers and each person's role is sort of all like, you don't go out and like make money that is like your money, yours, but it's like the money that you bring to the household.
Right. Like everything revolves around the family. Everyone's income comes back into the family and then would be remanaged by someone within.
Exactly.
And dispersed for the betterment of everyone.
Right. And
more or less.
That sort of ideal falls under like societies that have like a greater value on like collectivism, like family, community, state, nation, like sort of like where, but probably first and foremost is you're really caring for those like, in your most immediate proximity, most likely. So that is really that's not the kind of society that we necessarily operate in here
not
ourselves.
Really.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. So I think that's sort of interesting because there could be a greater sense of legacy. Maybe if you like,
that seems like a different kind of legacy even. Then it's like your family legacy.
Yes.
Like you're concerned about the whole family's name going forward and how specifically your family remembers you. Maybe rather than like the greater history of the world remembers you.
Right. Yep. So that's a big one. But then in addition to that, Coco also tackles this idea of second death, which would be like, what is the day when like after you may be gone, like basically the last person who still has memory of you is also gone.
Right.
And that is sort of like what we see. Oh, what's the character's name?
No, Chicaron.
Yeah. Yes. He's the one who lends Miguel and Hector the guitar. But you see him basically experience second death, which would basically signify that like the last person who had remembered him is now gone as well.
Right.
That is like another, especially through the topic of legacy, would be a really, really, really big one because, like I wouldn't know the name of like our grandfather's grandfather.
Right.
Which is kind of interesting.
Right. That is interesting. Like already that's starting to fade.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it really isn't like that far away. So like if you were to think, that like Luke's kids like might not know who you are.
Oh, don't like it.
I know.
Weird.
I know.
Here's a weird thing though to consider that you and I in particular, we are extremely public people.
Yeah.
In a way that, we upload 2 videos a week to YouTube and normally, like either of us is hosting one of those videos.
Yep.
And like, it's weird to think those videos will probably continue to exist online on the internet, basically forever. Right. So I don't know. It's hard to imagine a day in the future where not a single person on Earth anywhere watched a single video. Like we accrue 0 new views.
Right. Like nobody watched a SuperCarlinBrothers video. Oh, what a weird thought.
What a weird thought. Because they would still be there.
Right.
But like, there must be, that must exist. I'm sure there's tons of videos on YouTube that don't get any views any given day.
Right.
But or even like this podcast. Like this podcast will just exist forever. Someone could be listening to this 50 years after our death. They could have just stumbled into popcorn culture, and they're like, "Huh, wow, that's me right now. He's talking about me."
Right.
Weird. Like, how does that? Is it weird to think that someone could listen to your words from beyond the grave?
Yes, for one. Yeah. Absolutely, yes.
Have you considered this about our YouTube career at all?
Not in the way that you're describing, because I've always been so afraid that it would be gone just during my life that it hadn't even occurred to me that there's the possibility that like almost all of this stuff that we're kind of recording could be like little arrows into the future a little bit, like they can continue to stand the test of time in a way that like we physically cannot.
Right.
And we've really talked a lot about like mortality of
getting deep today, man.
getting real
We're
deep.
getting deep.
Right.
I mean, obviously, people are still talking about popcorn culture 500 years from now because it was remembered as the greatest podcast that ever was.
The greatest podcast. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
People are still finding Green Mallard Association stickers all over the world, wondering, where did these ducks come from?
What's with all
Where
the
did
ducks?
the ducks come from?
Okay.
We've been getting some good submissions on those, by the way.
We have been. But what if that was like, like the heads on Easter Island? Are you familiar with these? And it's
Yes.
just like, kind of like a giant mystery. Like, why are they there? Where
Why?
did they come from?
Yeah.
Like, what was the purpose? What if it was literally just a super whimsical chief of a tribe, like it's eons ago, that was like, this is going to be so funny. They're not going anywhere.
just pranking them.
Just put them places,
Just
guys.
put 'em.
Just put. You know what?
Let's just do it.
If that one leans a little bit, all the better. All the better.
What an amazing prank.
I know. What legacy?
What legacy? But see, the problem is no one knows who did it.
Yeah, it was not a very well documented legacy.
That would be so funny though. Like I love just projects like that are just like, it's just confused. It's like not chaos for like negativity, but if you and I secretly built like 50 identical 10-foot statues and were able to like over the course of our life just erect them in remote locations around the globe and we'll just see what happens. We'll just see what happens.
Goodness,
like,
can you imagine
I know.
being the insider knowledge, like literally making it like your quest, your goal, and everything to like cart one of these out and like to like the middle of like a canyon in the desert somewhere, and then just like wait for that one hiker to find it one day, and it's like it's not like a well traveled path. It's just like completely obscure. Someone spotted them on a drone one day, and it's like, wait a second. What is this?
Right.
And like news articles start sprouting up everywhere, and it's like, I am the person who knows, and I will tell no one.
I will tell no one, and you will all wonder about the weird statues forever.
Okay, so here's a question.
It'd be so funny.
It's always. I feel like it's always like pylons. Like
No,
like,
lame.
I know, right? Why pylon? It's so
Pylons.
trapezoidal.
Yeah, come on now.
I know. You could come up with something better, like a duck.
I was also thinking duck.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah? Like giant duck statue.
Giant, like I'm thinking like wings spread. Ooh. Like a big old, just a big old duck statue.
Shall we become sculptors?
We, at the very least, it seems like we need to know a sculpt. If you listening, Theater of Colonels, are in the statuary business,
Yeah.
as it were.
As it were.
If you're good at sculpting, at casting large statues, just get in touch with us. We might have some. Maybe we have some ideas.
We have a commish.
We have some ideas. This would be so funny too. Is that like if you arranged it in such a way, this would be. Oh, I'm just getting fun ideas.
Okay.
But like if you arranged it in such a way that like you had them built and you had them like it arranged such that it wasn't until after you died that all of them like appeared or like were revealed or something, and then people started finding them, because then like we're talking about it right now, so people are going to know it's us. But it will take people the time it takes to like stumble back upon episode 67 of Popcorn Culture to like start piecing together like, wait a minute, it was these guys.
How long do you think it would take if it's like our confession? Like, this is us saying right now, we did it.
It was us.
It was us.
We did the duck statues.
We did the duck statues, and this is clearly 100 years from now, and it's like, wow. They just admitted to it, like point blank, straight up, nice and simple.
Here's the thing: if you're listening, just don't tell anyone.
Yeah, exactly.
We know you know, and this is your opportunity to be in on the joke.
In on the duck statue thing.
You alone will be able to like walk around and be like, oh my God, they did it. I know exactly what it is. You know what? I would just keep it silent. Just enjoy the fun. Enjoy knowing. Enjoy that feeling.
Right.
You will know.
You can embrace the fact that you know about the duck statues.
You know about the duck statues.
Welcome to the secret.
Welcome to the secret. Don't tell anyone.
It's so it actually makes me feel closer with every single one of the little kernels out there.
It also,
like,
on a much smaller scale, this is already exactly what we're doing with the stickers, but they're less permanent.
It was a prototype.
Prototype, right.
Yeah, right.
Prototype. By the way, the stickers are available at SuperCarlinBrothers.store if you want one. The goal is to just try and find the coolest place to put a GMA Mallard sticker.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And the person who comes up with the best location quarterly, we will be presenting with the Stanley Duck
The
trophy.
Stanley Duck. Can't wait. Already got some good contenders for the inaugural Stanley Duck winner.
Yeah.
That no one can take away from you, Ben. No matter if people get better and better and better places that they've managed to put GMA stickers, it doesn't matter. You will always be the first one to win the Stanley Duck.
I know.
That says something.
Truly spectacular.
Yeah.
Quite the honor.
Right?
Okay, so hard left turn into the popcorn culture drinking game.
Oh, I think you mean the popcorn culture libations game.
Libations game.
Libations game?
Libations.
Yeah.
No. Okay, so this is actually not necessarily like a recommended practice, but there have been so many things that people have pointed out to us about our methods of conversation and like little crutches that we rely on that every single time people have pointed them out to me, and I know that we do them, and it's something that I would not have been self-aware about unless people had told me about these things.
Yeah.
But there are, like, going through any given episode, I guarantee you could almost like raise a finger, or there could be like a ding in your head, or like, they just did that thing again. They just did it again. And there's so many of them. It is so funny. So phenomenon is both what this is and an example of it.
Right. We use the word phenomenon a lot.
Like almost aggressively. Like I think that we place so many different concepts under the umbrella of phenomenon.
Okay.
Where it's like, where I don't even know if we're being like too loosey-goosey with it, or if we've just really like uncovered a whole bunch of different phenomenon.
Oh, okay. I'm already getting a really fun idea.
Okay.
So I think what you're suggesting is like a list of rules, and anytime we
fall victim to one of these
anytime
things.
we fall victim to one, anytime we say like GMA sticker or the word phenomenon, or like just commit an ism.
Another one for me is I say sure. Like, so like you'll say something, and it's like sort of my way of usually what I intend when I say like sure is like go on, continue.
Yeah.
Like, this is me acknowledging that I'm with you so far.
Right.
And that's really what I'm going for. But another one that we do that has recently been pointed out to me is the it's almost like ers and ums, where it's if I just did it right now, you're through communicating with another person, ers and ums are usually used as like a split second moment for you to have just a little bit more time.
Right. It's a crutch. Yeah.
To come up with the next thing to say.
Vocal fillers,
exactly. And what I just did by repeating you is one that you and I have developed as a conversational duo. Is we repeat each other as
we repeat each other. Wow.
And we do it, I know, because the way that we record the pop is very uncut, really, when it comes down to it.
Very uncut.
We do have an editor who like makes sure we like sound good and parses it together. And if there ever is like a moment where we've like run off the rails, everything kind of gets like very nicely cleaned up. Shout out to Ethan for doing all that for us.
Yeah.
But I think that you and I also are like maybe quietly afraid of not just seamlessly flowing into the next piece of conversation.
Right.
And one of the ways that we've like protected ourselves against that is by using this like let's repeat each other type of thing.
Well, the repeating someone's question back to them is like a actual strategy that might be taught to you in like a debate class or something.
Okay.
Because it gives you that extra few seconds to start formulating your answer. Like, you've only just heard it, and it's like almost unreasonable to immediately just know exactly what you're going to go back with. So a lot of times, and you can catch people doing this on like talk shows and stuff all the time, the host will ask a question and they'll be like, That's a really good question. Anytime anyone responds with "That's a really great question," they're not really complimenting the quality of the question and all of its many layered nuances. What they are doing is saying something to give themselves more time to think about the answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was me resisting saying sure.
I thought so. I was like, you don't normally say the word okay like that.
I know. It felt very unnatural. Yeah. This is actually really funny for me though, because I so frequently will say, wow, what a good question. And mean it.
Yes.
Like in the most genuine sense where I'm like, I am so impressed that you thought to ask that specific question. Like I'm stoked right now, honestly. Let me tell you more about this while I also prepare what I'm going to say in the back of my head.
I believe you when you say it, because that is not the typical crutch. The typical crutch you lean on is repeating it back.
Yeah.
So for you to like mix it up and actually compliment the question, it often comes across genuine from my perspective.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah,
that makes me feel like I'm doing it right.
Okay, so here's my idea though, Ben.
Okay.
So certainly there's like a list of popcorn culture isms that we commit on the reg.
We need like a standing Reddit page for these things.
Oh, we need like a pinned post on the Reddit for things we do.
Precisely. And then it needs to be like continuously filled in, and yeah.
What I'm imagining is like a bingo card.
Okay.
Right?
I like a bingo card.
But not your standard like 25 square bingo, easy mode bingo card. I'm imagining like 100 square card or something.
Goodness gravy.
And I have to imagine there is a service somewhere that exists online that can like print you random bingo, that can randomize the squares for you.
Okay.
Right. So we develop 100. We have a list of potential things we might say.
Okay, when you say 100, do you mean 100 squares?
Yeah,
or do
like
you
10
mean
by 10 grid.
10 by 10. Okay, I thought you meant 100 by 100. I was like,
oh, no. That's impossible.
Yeah, okay, yeah. At that point in time, it's just like, did they say ubiquitous in today's episode?
But so then, if you have a 10 by 10 square, getting bingo is a lot harder, especially if they're completely randomized. But then we can like have people print them out, play at home, see who gets bingo.
I love it.
That sounds fun.
That does sound better than a libation game.
I mean, you could also choose to take a libation whenever we do a thing, but if there's 100 of them, it feels like it's going to happen a lot. Like I can imagine something is listened I'm doing lots of vocal fillers right now. Like Jay and Ben forget the corny joke or something.
Yeah, that's a good one. Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
That's a lot. Have we done one today? Speaking of which,
hey, let me go ahead and just toss right to it. Okay, corny joke. Did you hear the one about the broken pencil?
No.
Never mind. It was pointless.
Nailed
it.
That's a good one.
I felt good about that delivery. I felt
pretty
real
good. Never forget it. It's not a funny joke. It's pointless.
It was pointless. Yeah, like the pencil, because the pencil was pointless.
The pencil was pointless.
Broken.
I get it.
Jokes are always better once explained. Oh man,
aren't they?
Aren't they? And transitioning immediately from that into our fun fact about coyotes.
Yeah, we wanted to forget these standing running segments on the show.
Exactly, especially if people are trying to fill out their bingo cards.
Exactly.
Okay, Jay, so this one comes from Sierra Halton, and this was something that I cannot believe that all my coyote research had not uncovered yet, and it's really, it feels so obvious. It's like it should have been there right before me the whole time. And Sierra was the one who beat me to the punch. And so huge shout out to her for delivering this fun fact to me. But coyotes can actually mate with dogs, and their offspring are called coy dogs.
Coy dogs?
Coy dogs.
I didn't know that at all.
I know. And once I found out, I was like, well, now I need one.
Coy dogs?
A coy dog.
That seems like the wrong word. I feel like they could do better. Like a dog-odie sounds,
That does sound way better.
Dog-odies?
Yeah. A dog-odie does sound a lot better than a coy dog.
A coy dog. It just sounds like you're describing the personality of this dog. Like, he's kind of coy.
No, you want to know what it actually reminds me of? Is corn dogs.
Oh, yeah, a little bit. Would you say coy dog, though? Because you don't say coyote, you say coyote. Is it like kai dog?
That's a good question as well.
Yeah.
And I mean it.
Oh, thank you.
Because I don't know the answer. But for whatever reason, the way that it's written, I'm reading it as coy dog. But you're right, it could be kai dog. Because it's like coyote, COY is kai.
Right.
But not always, and not even usually.
Not even usually.
This is the problem with the English language.
Very bad at communicating itself.
It does not hold up to the combo words. Yeah, because that's like the word kernel. We've complained about it before, but like that would be like if you put COL at the beginning of any other, like you would never be like, oh, that's like kernel.
Right.
It's like no, it's cold.
It's not like, when you see Colossus, you're like, actually, that's Curlossus. Yeah.
Curlossus. Could be, though. That would be a great name.
Curlossus. The X-Men nobody likes because he always corrects you. Like, I am Colossus and this is my brother, Curlossus. And he's like, hi, guys. I don't know if you heard, he said Curlossus.
Let's talk about it.
If you say Colossus, that's not me. I won't respond to that. Like you spelled it the same.
Finger wag. Okay, so speaking of Marvel, look at me segueing up a storm today. Okay, so this time last year, I think it was the March 9th episode of The Pop, we were making predictions about what was going to be happening precisely 1 year from a year ago. Last year's episode of The Pop, we were predicting what was going to happen this year. We were going to be predicting like what's happening this year. As of recording this episode, it is March 11th, so we're pretty close to exactly 1 year later. Okay, and we had a couple of predictions. You predicted that this week we would be probably making a Pixar video. Okay, let's see. So I would have been thinking that whatever came out after Soul would be coming out now. That must have been the case because they pushed Soul back. There's the really interesting thing about the fact that we did it on that particular week is that we were basically like running headfirst into COVID and quarantine, and like the world for just about everybody was about to change in ways that had basically been right. Okay, so what happened is last year at this time Onward must have come out. Because I would have thought Soul's going to come because Pixar's usual schedule is like March, June, November. I guess sometimes they do November. Maybe Soul was supposed to come out in June. That doesn't sound right. They do a lot of June releases. It's often like June 16th almost a lot. Right. But I guess that's what I would have thought, that they would have come out with Soul, whatever's coming out after Soul, which I think is like Turning Red, would come out now-ish. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Instead, we made a video about Raya and the Last Dragon. Okay. Who? Popcorn culture fun fact. We've talked before about the name to look for in the credits. Yes. Is the Caffeinator Carlos. I think we predicted that we were like, whenever Raya comes out, we'll have to look out and see if he was the Caffeinator. He was! Amazing. Well done, Carlos. Confirmed Caffeinator. Let's talk about this for a second because this was sort of an odd, I'm going to do it, phenomenon with Raya and the Last Dragon. And it could be the case that so far I'm still like in the dark on this, and I could be wrong, but there has been an odd effect in that there are next to no Easter eggs in Raya and the Last Dragon. Wow, that is surprising. I mean, the Caffeinator is just like an in-house Easter egg. That's not even like a real Easter egg that Disney does. Sure. That's just a real job he does. We just know to look for him. Alan Tudyk is the voice of Tuk Tuk, who is, and he does a voice in every Disney animated movie now. Yes. Actually, interestingly, in Moana, he is Hey Hey, but he's also the gentleman that is looking at Hey Hey, and he's like, shouldn't we just eat him? He's that voice too. That's funny. I didn't know that until just recently while I was looking up Alan Tudyk's other roles. I was like, oh, no way, that's him. Cool. But yeah, so the thing about Raya is that it was basically being produced and developed and made and everything during quarantine. So a lot of the movie was made literally from like all the way around the world, like tons of different homes and computers and all sorts of stuff. And what is baffling to me is that next to no Easter eggs made it in, while the opportunity would have felt so ripe. Right, like no one's going to know. No, I'm going to put this here. No one's going to see it because there's so like the checks and balances are so it's like they're all out of whack. They're all out of whack. So easy to sneak stuff in. Exactly. And so I think that's what is most interesting to me about it is that it almost seems that given the freedom of being home, the animators did not slip these things in unless they're like much, much deeper and like it's going to be like harder to find.
See, this to me makes it feel like, because you never know with Easter eggs, like, was this a group decision or did like someone sneak it in? And that's the fun thing. Like I often just don't know. Like when it's like a hidden Mickey, that to me feels like people talked about it. Like we need to include, or like A113, that feels like people talked about it.
I would be willing to bet that there's a meeting somewhere at this point in time as to where do we do A113. Like I would be willing to bet that is on people's radars enough. Pizza Planet Truck, Luxo Ball, all of like the very like super classic Pixar Easter eggs.
But this makes it feel like, it makes it feel like it's much more intentional than I would have thought.
That is kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Whereas I would have thought maybe it was like, oh yeah, I needed a thing, so I grabbed Lotso and dropped him in this girl's room. Isn't that fun? And they're like, that is fun. Cool, leave it in.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And who knows, maybe that is how it's happening. But to me, because I refuse to believe that people could resist putting in Easter eggs. What my guess is that there are Easter eggs, but it's more like personal in-house things.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I could totally see that. Like if you were like at home at your kitchen table and you're like animating a scene inside of a hut, that instead of incorporating like a chair from a prior Disney movie or something, you literally animate the chair in the room with you.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, our family rocking chair is now in Raya.
And no one knows except for me, but we'll know. Yeah.
What a piece of legacy for the fam.
We're living on.
We're living on.
Exactly.
No one will know, but we'll know.
But we'll know.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's an interesting.
So I wonder how many of those things are in Raya, or if there's Easter eggs and people just have, or like we just haven't fine-tooth combed it enough yet.
And that's entirely possible. This was, and I will tell you that this is not something that I typically do. In general, I actually abstain from watching other content creators that make stuff similar to ours, specifically because I am constantly afraid of like loving an idea that somebody comes up with and having it lodge into my brain so aggressively that I can't shake it until like we've attempted to do our version of it.
It is such a weird problem because it's like, we are very much in the community of people who like deep dive these things. And if you're just on the other side, just a viewer, you probably watch lots of people that like us.
Yes.
And like, as someone who makes this stuff and who enjoys it, it's like, I think I would definitely like a lot of other people's content, but I will actively not watch. I don't watch any other theory channels at all. Cause like, same thing. I don't want to be influenced. I don't want to like, accidentally steal someone's idea or anything.
Exactly.
Like that.
And with that though, there's also sort of this sense of like there's a certain amount, and it's almost like how I've described before how like your name is like the letter J, and I feel like I can hear the letter J the way I say it instead of like Jay. Mm-hmm. It's the same way with like Easter eggs in the movies where it's like you could go through and watch one of these channels that's gone through and like earmarked all of them, and it's like 47 things you missed in Toy Story,
right?
Or whatever, and you could like literally spot them all. But it's almost like I feel like the audience can feel the difference when I found them on my own, and so typically even those types of videos like I don't watch. So it's like the Easter eggs
even if it's just information,
right? Even if it's just information,
right.
It's like I found like the Easter eggs that we point out. I found them, like and I earned those Easter eggs. And I know you can tell because there's a difference between whether or not someone told me.
I think there is a difference for sure.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. Because there's like a swelling pride that happens when you do spot one of those things and you're like, oh,
there it is.
That's it. No way. That's so cool.
Yeah.
But where was I going with this? Okay, think. Easter eggs. Oh, but so I did not spot any Easter eggs in Raya, and I was like, oh, that's so weird. Like, how could there not be any? And so I would say like maybe one of the first times that I've done this in recent history, I was like, Watch Mojo, you figure it out yet? Like, it was kind of like one of these, like, I'm gonna go to the big box stores and hope that they have that rare collectible or something, like did you guys figure it out? Because we didn't. And As far as I could tell, I wasn't seeing anything. And maybe this is like your Facebook problem where you were like, I need a way to download all the photos from my Facebook album. And then like literally the same week that you brought it up, it was like delivered as a feature of Facebook's like whatever.
So maybe it's up now.
Maybe it's up now and I just haven't looked. So there's a very real possibility that by the time this episode goes live, I'm just going to get inundated with emails where people are like, Ben, they're everywhere.
Yeah. Well, this episode will go up like 2 weeks after Raya has come out.
That's true. So there will be some incubation time. That's a good point. That's a very good point. So who knows? I will be very eager to find out. If you guys have found anything, do send it my way. I'm curious to hear. You can either leave it in the comments down below. You can go find us over on Reddit where it is. I never know how to do the Reddit.
r/popcorn culture.
r/popcorn culture. That's us. You can email me any of your thoughts to popcornculturepod@gmail.com. I do appreciate your corny joke submissions and fun facts about coyotes. If you guys have found good things that I haven't seen before, as kind of featured in today's episode.
Yeah.
Also, we are nearing the end of the available window to get in on the very first Patreon physical perk that we have available at our $25 tier, which is Fred the Cup. If you guys have been listening to the Pop for a long time, you know that I've been on my quest to simplify things and have a one cup lifestyle. I have named my personal cup Fred, and it's mine. It's personally a green Yeti tumbler, and it has laser etched into it the logo for Popcorn Culture.
Yeah.
We will actually ultimately have 3 different colors available. If you are interested in getting in on this, you can do so up until the end of March. And if you are after that time, like starting April 1st, then you will be in for the Q2 item, which has not yet been selected yet. So if you want to check that out, you can do so at patreon.com/popcornculture. But otherwise, guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. We will see you next week.
Pop, pop.